what are your metrics that defines a healthy relationship and unhealthy relationship?
Good communication.
Good communication.
How do you communicate something to somebody? It can be simple as, can you pass me the pinch of salt? How do you communicate? Is there aggression in your communication to somebody else? So like if somebody communicates aggressively, that is a red flag. Because first of all, aggression gives way into avoidance. Because when we are aggressive,
Hello, wonderful humans. Welcome to Modern Day Campfire by your host, Martin Sambia, where we advocate for mental wellness and personal growth through visual arts and talk. And I have a very, very great news for you. This being the 21st episode of Thinking Different with Martin Sambia, we have a very special guest who is here to help us dive deeper into a topic that touches all aspects of our lives, and that topic is intimacy and relationship. Our guest today is Ian Moses, and Ian Moses is a counseling psychologist with a whole year experience in helping individuals and couples to navigate in complexity of love, connection, and intimacy. And Ian also specializes in relationship therapy, marriage counseling, and healthy and sexual health. Sexual health. And today he's going to share with us all his insights from communication struggles to intimacy, maintaining intimacy. And if you are in a relationship, or you are single, or you are just curious on how to deepen your connection, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. Let's dive in. Okay, welcome, Ian.
thank you so much.
So today we are going to talk about intimacy and relationship. So what comes to your mind when you hear that term?
A relationship, for me, it is like a committed agreement between two people to come into an exclusive relationship, first of all, and also commit in terms of like growth, in terms of like healing, in terms of like trust. When it comes to intimacy, like what I can best describe it, it is close familiarity or friendship.
Familiarity or friendship.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And this being like a platform where we fully advocate for mental health, but from different perspective in life. So why do you think relationship and intimacy is important for our personal well-being?
So first of all, importance of relationship and intimacy, it helps us become more self-aware. Because being in a relationship, it is there's a concept that I'll talk about, differentiation. So all of us are different, but there's also that element of similarity that comes in a relationship. We become much more self-aware about our own limitations, about our own strengths, but also it opens us up to be selfless and also receptive to the inner realities of our partner. So that's the first thing that it is important. If we look at relationships, healthy relationships, it helps lower rates of stress, anxiety, depression. It boosts self-worth because we feel worth being in healthy relationships. So there's our sense of belonging, our sense of worth that is seen in a relationship. Also, another thing, it opens us up to different perspectives. What do I mean? When two people agree to be in a relationship, there's that agreement that we are different. So it opens ourselves up to different perspective in terms of my partner has this way of doing things, and I have to respect the way they are doing things. And they also have to respect how we do things. We can't all be perfect. Because I always say one thing, to love, you love in flawed moderation. What is flawed moderation? It is acknowledging the fact that our partners are imperfect, but in the context of a relationship, we are ready to take in the imperfections and remove the perfectionism outside of the relationships. Another thing that I have found to be very why relationships are important, it is because it helps us to heal. How our bodies have been created by God, it is we heal at in co-regulation, not self-regulation, in co-regulation. Our brain, if it is in the midst of fulfilling relationships, it has been shown to infuse feelings of happiness, feelings of healing. It's sustenance. When you co-regulate with somebody, there's sustenance that comes with it. Even research has shown that people in healthy relationships, when they have a wound, they tend to heal faster. Yeah.
In healthy relationship.
Yeah, they tend, like partners who are in very satisfying relationships tend to, if they have wounds, the wounds heal faster because there's that component of co-regulation, the element of being two, not separate. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is you just mentioning the importance. I know there are many people out there who are very motivated now to go into relationships.
Yeah.
But now another question is now how are you able to tell that, like, what are your metrics that defines a healthy relationship and unhealthy relationship? Because I believe all these importance are from an aspect of healthy relationship.
Yeah.
It will be vice versa for unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
So for us to avoid being now victims in unhealthy relationship, what are your metrics?
So my matrix basically is, first of all, good communication.
Good communication.
How do you communicate something to somebody? It can be simple as, can you pass me the pinch of salt? How do you communicate? Is there aggression in your communication to somebody else? So, like, if somebody communicates aggressively, that is a red flag. Because, first of all, aggression gives way into avoidance. Because when we are aggressive, we inhibit um, the element and the component of intimacy. When there's good, healthy communication, intimacy is fostered, people's realities are respected. So, one thing I want to talk about communication. So, communication to other people, it might seem objective, but the way you communicate to somebody else, there is a subjective component of things, our own reality. So, when we communicate healthily, I am able to be like, it is not a contest about who is communicating the best. It is when we have good, healthy communication, we are able to express our own subjective realities. First of all, with respect. So the way I see respect as a way, when we communicate healthily, it does not isolate the individual. It makes people turn towards each other. The way I communicate, it must make somebody turn to me and I turn to them. There's no isolation that happens in the process. Another thing is trust.
Trust.
One thing that I've come to realize, trust is very shaky. Trust is very delicate. I can trust you maybe with a little thing. It's not actually that deep, but I'm able to trust you with maybe a secret. Are you trustworthy enough to hold that secret and not share it? If I find like I share something with my friend and my friend goes and broadcasts it without my permission, that's actually a boundary violation. I think that is very important. Like, you trust them. Because trust, for us to be able to discern other people that are trustworthy,
Yeah.
we need to become the emblem of trust within ourselves. Do we trust ourselves? Because people look at us. We move in the world. So we have people that look up to us, they see us. There's something called the Johari's window, the blind self, the unknown self.
Johari's window.
Yeah, the blind self, the unknown self, the non-self, and the hidden self. So with the blind self, it might be blind to us, but to the other person, they can't see it. So there's that element of, when it comes to trust, we must trust within ourselves because we cannot translate an impulse without first becoming the impulse. So that is something that I always look at. Do I trust myself? Do I trust my emotional responses? That's one thing. Another thing that I always find is a very good indication of relationships is boundaries. So when people hear boundaries,
So you've said communication,
communication,
trust. Now you're talking of boundaries.
Yeah. So when it comes to boundaries, people have a negative reaction to boundaries. So I'm here to challenge their notion of boundaries. Boundary is about setting a healthy limit for yourself. You do not overextend yourself to suit a relationship, because I've seen this. You're in a relationship with somebody, they expect you to drop everything and to neglect yourself and to be like you don't have any limit, like anything is unlimited, and that is not how a relationship can thrive. There must be a limit in terms of we are able to acknowledge this is the ability and the limit and the endurance limit I can make. Because having boundaries can be in terms of like your partner cannot say certain things that they know is harmful to you, or you cannot translate things to your partner that you know clearly is harmful to them. So if somebody is able, like if I'm able to tell somebody I have boundaries, there's that micro expression where they are like, it's about putting rules. No, it's about having a limit, about your own boundaries, and also you being emotionally intelligent to recognize other people's boundaries. Because boundaries is not one way, it's not about me communicating, it's also about me respecting you, yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And there was something like we once talked about, and I was expecting you maybe to mention it, about maybe also knowing the traumas and does it have a role in a relationship?
Having a trauma-informed relationship is very important.
Trauma-informed relationship.
Very, very important. Because when people come into a relationship, they have different trauma histories. So I want to challenge people. It's not something that happened to you. You tend to focus on my daddy, my mommy did this to me. It was so traumatic. Sometimes the action is important, yes, it's very valid. But you need to look at what was left unsaid. We need to have a language for trauma. What is the trauma intervention that you can do in your relationship? Because we all have triggers. We all have things that when our partner tells us, it brings us back to childhood. There's something that we can't handle on our own, and our partners unconsciously don't understand this is something that can trigger you. So one thing is, when you're in a trauma-informed relationship, you are becoming much more knowledgeable about your two nervous systems coming together. One nervous system wants to talk, the other nervous system wants to align. But how do you reach a status of equilibrium? A status of equilibrium is taking something that I call courageous communication. Take the part of you're the wounded partner, and there's a wounding partner, right? So the wounding partner might take the element of communicating. The other partner might take like the listening role. So they are able to individually explore their own realities when they take time to listen, take time to talk. It's not a competition where you want to be in a talk show. Like it is, you have to talk, but you also have to listen. So when you listen to your partner's triggers and traumas, it really helps you next time be able to be careful in how you navigate them. Because I always tell people, in a relationship, there's a certain tone I cannot take. Like if somebody comes to me aggressively and that's a trigger, I'm like, you can't talk to me in that way. That is actually highly unacceptable for you to talk to me. So when you do that, first of all, that's corrective behavior. So corrective behavior is I don't wait for like they keep on doing that.
For it to compound, like
So like with the corrective thing, like the corrective response is where like somebody will do something and I will be like, I don't like the way you're addressing this thing to me, and I feel like I need some time to disengage, and then we can come back when we're less reactive. So you're able to indicate to the other person the next time they want to bring that type of behavior up, they'll be like, Ian doesn't like when I do this. So that is corrective. A lot of people don't do that immediately when that outcome happens, and that leads to relationship breakdown. Because when your partner says something that is very inflammatory to you, you want to keep quiet about it because you want to address it. So your partner will actually know, oh, this is very okay for me to address Ian this way. So they will consistently do that and do that and do that. There will be not that restraint that comes in when they are like, I don't want to do this. It's like Ian said, this is a no, it is a no, so you have to respect it. So you need to do the correction first when it happens, because when you prolong the correction in a relationship, it leads to, first of all, unrealistic expectations and also resentment.
And for unrealistic expectation, can you expand on that kidogo?
So unrealistic expectations. So this is very amazing. It is a very good question. So unrealistic expectations is very different. I don't have like a manual for like, oh, this is unrealistic expectations. People have their own standard of expectations. My expectations might be very different from your expectations. But how I define unrealistic expectation, it is something that makes us go above and beyond our own abilities to cope in a relationship. So unrealistic expectations basically can be one that is common. We expect our partners to be mind readers. So what do I mean? You get into a relationship with someone. So the lady or the guy is like, oh, you know these things. You want to conform to what society tells your relationship is supposed to be. So there's that expectation that you don't voice out. You're like, oh, I thought this is so common to you. So there's that is unrealistic expectation because we expect our partners to be mind readers. We are not teaching our partners how to be in relationships with us. So one thing that I always tell people, when you get into a relationship, if somebody tells me that I love you, I know I love you beyond everything, beyond
Yeah.
the universe, I always tend to chuckle because I'm like, you don't actually know the frequency of love I want. It's a playbook. So I'm like, no, let me correct you on that. The best way for you to address this thing in a relationship, you're supposed to ask me, Ian, how do you want love to be manifested to you? And I would have to ask you, excuse me, how would you want me to extend love to you? Love is not something that is common to all. Like people think love is common, but sometimes if we can't actually understand our standard of love, how we want to be loved ourselves, we can't actually communicate the same thing to our partners. And then it becomes this constant crusader effect of like, it's the same thing, it's the same relationship because they're just pinpointing what is advertised. But it's not about allowing people to love you the way you want to be loved. Because when you allow people to love you the way they want to be loved, it first of all, it lowers resentment because both parties are highly aware this is Ian's limits, these are Ian's green light, this is Ian's red light, this is Ian's maybe light. So they are able to understand this is how Ian wants to be loved. And they will be like, you ask that, but also be like, will you teach me how to love you? So it is okay to ask, but also correspond it with action. Be willing to be open. Don't be rigid about how society tells us to love. Stop expecting your partners to be mind readers. Introduce systems of communication, systems of value, system of meaning in a relationship. Because both of us have our different values. When we come into a relationship, not because we want to be the same. I always tell people be different. Differentiation in relationship means what? It's like both of us are different, but we have our unique sense of self while still existing on the plane of relationships. So we are different, but it doesn't like it's like you take this as an analogy. You're in a boat. You're here and your partner is there. So you're traveling in a lake. So traveling in a lake, you're traveling beside each other but on different boats. You're different, but you're still coexisting at the relationship. You have your uniqueness. Because a lot of people get into relationships, they forget themselves. It's their partner one, themselves second. But you have to ask yourself these very important questions. Who are you before that relationship happened? Who are you during that relationship? And who will you be when that relationship has ended? Those are very important questions we need to ask ourselves. Because when you have those answers, we will be able to be different. We are able to recognize this is who I was. Can I still sustain this certain sense of value, identity? Relationships evolve, relationships grow for the better, for the worse, but it is a matter of us also recognizing that we were different people when it came into the relationship, and it is also important for our partner to respect our uniqueness so that it doesn't lead to monotony. Because when we are the same, who are we going to connect with in a relationship? No.
Yeah, that is dope. And I have a question, but before you do that, hope it doesn't freeze.
It's clear.
Yeah. So like, yeah, you've talked about us being different,
Yeah.
and I feel like it goes back somehow to the aspect of we are like maybe an individual entity on our own,
Yeah.
but also I like yani like what advice do you have when you talk about the aspect of vulnerability? Like now we kind of need to loosen, like I'm a complete person on my own, you are a complete person on your own, but like we have to, you have like with your partner, you have like kind of to lose a half of you and just be open for their a half. Like what is the best word for you to, like, because I know many people who like they really understand that I am complete on my own, but now they stick to that, not knowing like when you are like love, you have to shed some things and you have to accept some things. So what better word do
Analogy
you?
do I have for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing, when we approach vulnerability,
Uh-huh.
people approach vulnerability from a point of deepness.
Deepness.
So when we look at vulnerability can be something that is known.
Mhm.
It can be like, what is your partner's favorite memory? What was your partner's favorite activity when they were young? And then when you start from the known, you build the resilience into the unknown. Because when you start from the unknown, we recognize this complexity of emotion that happens. So people tend to shut down when something unknown is in place, when something complex is being thrust at them, like you have to address this. But when we start from something known, you're
Okay.
building that resilience component of things, of telling your partner, we have a foundation, because vulnerability must have a foundation in the known reality. When we start from the known, it translates slowly and slowly to the unknown. And our partners will have that resilience to be able to address some things. Like vulnerability should not be, you have to be so deep in everything. It's just chill out, guys. Just relax. It can be like, what was the favorite trail that you used to like walking to? What was the favorite hike that you used to like to go on when you're 16, when you're 18, when you're 54? Those are things that you need to know, because vulnerability has a stigma attached to it, because people always assume that to be vulnerable you must address so many deep things,
Insensitive things.
very insensitive, because sometimes if we don't build the resilience from the known, we cannot be able to handle the complex realities of our partners, because we don't have a language for vulnerability. Society emphasizes on conformity. We must, like, vulnerability doesn't have to be, it has to happen in this certain way. Vulnerability can never happen uncertain, and that is not true authentic vulnerability. Vulnerability can be uncertain. Vulnerability can be, let me think about what allows that person or the other day. And the way they describe that other person, that is vulnerability. They're like, they're stating their own inner reality. But our society is emphasizing on this standard of vulnerability, shutting off this other standard of vulnerability that is very important. Start from the known, build the resilience of your partner, show your partner that you're able to hold them, ask them something that they feel comfortable with, build their resilience. As you people continue climbing the staircase of vulnerability, it is uncertain, because at any time, you will not be able to know like how vulnerability is happening. So I'll give an example. So for me, as a reader, I love reading romance novels. Like, romance novels are like the tea that I grew up reading when I was growing up. And the type of vulnerability that I tend to notice was the one that started from the unknown, neglecting the known. But as I have started reading, I've read much more informed, like female centric romance novels, male centric romance novels. Like, currently, I'm reading a book by Ali Hazel. She's very phenomenal. She knows how to create the vulnerability. Her vulnerability is starting from, what was the terrible thing that you did as a child? And like, it's so known, it's something that does not need you to use brain power to filter things. It's so uncensored. So when we start from the unknown, there's that uncensored quality to it. We're not trying to censor because we're like, oh, our partner will see us in certain things. You are uncensored. So when vulnerability happens from the known, there's that uncensored quality to it. You'll tell me, what was actually the most terrible thing you did as a child, I'll be able to, oh, I did this and this and this. It's not something that I need to think about twice. And it is actually showing me that, oh, my partner needs to know something so uncensored. And as you build that capacity, then the censoring will not be there, because you'll be able to open up about the vulnerability in terms of like things that have happened to you that have been complex enough that you, because your partner has created that system of vulnerability. So first thing, let us create systems of vulnerability. Let us stop copy pasting patterns of like, oh, this and this and this. Let's be unique in how we approach our relationships, because society has a playbook, but also we also have our own unique realities that need to be in the relationship.
Yeah, thank you. But I need you to take your sip this before you clarify on another thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So today we are also talking about intimacy. And from like before I came to understand what intimacy really was, what my brain used to register was sex. Sex. Yeah. So we have different types of intimacy. And do you mind taking us through the types of intimacy?
So the types of intimacy, they are very wide. But I'll talk about things that are very common. So one type of intimacy we have is intellectual intimacy. Intellectual intimacy, in simple terms, is the, how do we have conversations? How deep is our conversation? That is intellectual
Intimacy.
How are we able to express ourselves? Now that is, what do we do? So when we are able to intellectually engage with our partners, then that is, we are building that fortitude of intimacy. Another thing is experiential intimacy. Experiential intimacy is about the experiences that we have with our partners. How do we experience our realities? Because your partner sees differently from you. So when you're able to experience certain memories with them, that is, you're experiencing a lot of things with them. Another thing that is
That one
important,
goes to also like humor. Can humor fall there?
Humor is much more to do with intellectual, because
To do with intellect. Okay.
people have like different, like for me personally, I'm very dark. My humor is very dark, very dark, like level dark. Sometimes people will not be able to understand, because they're like, that is actually insult humor. But I'm like, no, it's not insult humor. It's observational humor. So when you're able to educate people on, this is how I interpret humor, very smart. So it is.
Intellectual.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one.
So the other type of intimacy we have is spiritual intimacy.
Spiritual intimacy.
Who do you pray to? How do you see faith? How is faith impacting you? So there's that element of spirituality that happens in relationships all across the board, whether it is normal relationships, not to say abnormal relationships, because there's no such thing as abnormal relationships, but I can say relationships that tend not to fall into like a stereotypical type of like way that relationship is supposed, like the relationships that are much more experimental. So we have the normal relationships and the experimental relationships. How does spirituality like dance around those types of relationships? Because relationships nowadays is very diverse. It is not exclusive. There is consensual non-monogamy that is in the mix. So we need to think that is very important, because we need to actually understand how is spirituality in monogamy, how is spirituality in consensual non-monogamy. That is another type of intimacy.
And do you think, let me just give you an example, like, because for spirituality, I like beyond faith, could it be something that maybe not future oriented, but something, maybe an energy we believe in? Let's say you're doing counseling psychologies, like your desired result when it comes to success, it's kind of attached to counseling psychologists. You finding a partner who also believe in the same, can that be termed as also spiritual intimacy?
That can be, because you're manifesting what you want to see. So that is manifestation is much more spiritual.
Much more
We
spiritual.
manifest. And also that is a very important point, because like it has been shown that we are likely to marry partners in the same condition. So that is, it's we are manifesting, because when you have a partner, for example, that is a psychologist, you are able to navigate things very easily because these are concepts that you both know.
Yeah. And also, yeah, and it makes sense in terms of, like, for spirituality, it goes down to our beliefs, values. So also having someone who you believe in the same thing, like having the same belief system, or even the values. I feel like maybe with our experiences, our career can be an experience that will shape our belief system. So yeah, it is making sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last intimacy that I know of is physical boundary. No, not physical boundaries.
Physical intimacy.
Physical intimacy is, how do you want to be touched? The kissing, the cuddling, because a lot of people, they have like mixed reactions to cuddling, mixed reaction to touching intimately. So we need to understand this is how my partner wants to express themselves. So this goes into boundary. How does our partner want to be touched? Because I always say, when we want to experience intimacy and pleasure are very different things. But they
Intimacy
go
and pleasure.
very different. But to somebody that has not deeply understood the concept, it might be the same. Hand in hand, both of them need each other. So intimacy is, for us to experience pleasure, there must be intimacy. Intimacy in, I touch you in the right context at the right time. Because in relationship, it is not anybody's job. Like, for example, I am depressed. It's not my partner's job to get me out of my head. I must come into the relationship with the intention to engage with my partner. So it is important for our partners to be able to understand that it is not their job to handle or to co-parent my emotions. I'm an adult. I can be able to feel my emotions, but also seek support, because a lot of times when it comes to emotions in relationships, we've never asked our partners. Our partners are having a bad day. We've not asked them, my partner, would you like me to listen or offer feedback? Majority of the times, our partners want us to listen. So we can offer a listening ear. Stop with the feedback thing. It is not right to feedback if your partner doesn't want you to feedback. You just listen. And also, it gives your partner that ability to debrief within themselves and come into the relationship. Because if we want to manage our partner's emotions, we are going to build resentment because our partners will not be able to express themselves. So physically, that comes in when the emotional and the physical, to a certain extent, are the same. So you find when your partner is like emotionally disturbed, physically they will not be able to be at a point where they can connect with you. But when they are out of their minds themselves, they can take themselves out of them. What you have to do as a partner, you have to acknowledge that my partner is feeling this way and my partner wants me to take this route. So when you're able to help them understand that, then it becomes much more easy. The physical element of things can come in nicely because we are able to understand this is how my partner wants me to interact with their body, not how society tells me I should interact with their body.
Thank you for that. But before you go, also I need you to. There is emotional intimacy. Yeah, I need you to talk about that, and also future-oriented, vision-oriented. The one you share the same vision, like I can see myself maybe in a span of 10 years. I can still see myself with my partner. Yeah.
So
So
emotional intimacy is all about expressing emotions. How do we express our emotions? So when you're emotionally intimate, you're able to let your partner know your emotional responses at a point. So for example, you're having an argument with your partner about the dishwasher. Oh, who didn't load up the dishwasher? So the emotional intimacy here is you're able to see the dishwasher is a surface level thing. What is the deeper component of it? Maybe they are feeling that they're not a need, they're not a priority. With emotional, you're able to tell this is my partner is not willing to have a conversation with me. So intimacy in terms of emotional is where you're feeling reactive, but you have the grace and the knowledge to tell your partner, like you're having an argument with them, and you're like, I feel like I'm getting reactive, and I don't want to project my reactivity onto you. Can we take a step back and revisit this when both of us have co-regulated together? Let us give ourselves a 5-minute timer. You cuddle with each other. Then, when you have already cooled down, and you've been able to come together and express things, the emotions at that point will be peace, will be calm, will be joy, will be inclusivity. You're able to express emotions in a way that does not isolate but also makes you turn towards each other, because emotional intimacy is about turning towards each other. It's about understanding that our partners also have their limit when it comes to expressing how they feel.
Yeah, thank you. And for vision oriented, thank you for that. That one is well put. That one is everything is well put from the beginning.
Yeah.
That one Pia is dope. A thumbs up.
So with future oriented, I think that is much more in my own definition, how I understand it. It's curiosity about the future. You're curious about who you will be in the future. So when we talk about future oriented, it is a matter of us being curious, but also being willing to engage with the future. We are
Together.
actually, you're actually aligning certain things to ensure that you reach that goal. So you have a vision, and there is a future that goes hand in hand with the vision. So what are you going to do? It's very important for you to have a vision, but don't sit like that. You have to engineer and align some things to ensure that the future is met. So it is about being curious about the future, but also having a knowledge and also systems that are very important. Like they are like, if you want to achieve to buy a house, that is a future thing. You want to invest in buy a house. So what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to look at how my finances at this point of life looking like. Start investments, start looking for like very important financial knowledge about how you can be able to manifest the future, because future is manifesting. Future is talked, but the validity of the future is manifesting.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Yeah. Now, in conclusion, there are those people who now they are in a relationship, and maybe they like now they are hearing story in a communication for the first time,
Yeah.
and they like maybe they feel like they've already bottled up a lot,
Yeah.
and it's kind of too late.
Yeah.
What do you have for them?
It's never too late to start a new relationship. It's never too late. And people always say communicating can come in terms of like, how do you want somebody to talk to you? So first of all, if you don't want somebody to talk to you in a bad way, be like, I don't like the way you talk to me. Can you try approaching this relationship from this tone? You are able to, it is about you. How do you want? Communication is a thing that we have individually. So for those people that feel like, oh, communication is terminal at this point, no, it's not terminal. You can start a new chapter of communication. You can start by understanding, how do I want to be? How do I respond well to communication? It starts with you. How do you communicate with yourself? So when you're able to understand, this is how I communicate to myself, you'll be able to tell your partner, this is how I talk to myself. Can you try talking like this to me? And I'm open to suggestion on how to handle you. So it is about inviting the other person to talk. Like you have to invite them. You ask them, "Do you like me when I talk like this? How does it make you feel? What do you want us to do?" Because feelings come and go, but a want is committed. Feelings are episodic. When you say, "I feel
A
like you
want
should
is
talk,"
committed,
yeah,
feelings are episodic.
episodic.
That is a bar.
So
Okay.
like you find that feeling like I feel like you're talking to me about, I want you to talk to me. Feelings come and go. Some people find that as a love language. Some people don't find that as a love language.
Feelings.
Because, yeah, some people find like when somebody communicates in a way that is isolating, it's a love language. To another person, it's not. So they'll be like, I feel like, no, say I want this. I want you to try this. When you say I want, you're giving it vision, you're giving it motivation, you're giving it curiosity, and you're also allowing your partner to know that a feeling is not episodic. It won't be here and be gone the next day. It doesn't have to be like it's a drama at this point, it's a comedy at this other point. So you need to be able to be like, I want is permanent, feelings temporary. So you're like, I want us to try this communication pattern. Go look up at there's this very important life coach. she's a relationship coach. She's called Julianne Tureki. She has this very phenomenal quote that I've been taking through, even in my relationship, even like everything. Like she says that a healthy relationship will motivate you to turn up even when you don't want to turn up. So the same thing with communication. You can never communicate with somebody that does not respond to you. So how, like, we need to understand that to model communication, teach our partners first how to respond to our request of communication. So that's where we need to start from. This whole thing will follow, but you need to teach your partner, this is how I like you to respond when I talk about this. How do you want me to respond the way I'm talking? So it needs to be negotiating. It's like more of like a negotiation of like, this is my response. Is it not happy for you? What can I do? Can you help me? It's about collaboration. So communication should be collaborative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you again. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah. And also thank you, my viewers, for your never-ending support. You are the part of motivation. Thank you. It is a wrap for now. See you on the next video. Thank you. Yeah, and that was profound again.